2/3 of people with Alzheimer's disease are women, not slightly more than half. 2/3. And most of them had no idea it was starting. And here is what makes that number even more alarming. Research from Michigan Medicine, analyzing data from over 26,000 people, found that cognitive function in women declines approximately 5 years faster than their age alone would suggest. 5 years faster than men of the exact same age. And yet, most of those women had no idea it was happening. Not because the signs weren't there, because nobody told them what to look for. I'm Patricia Novak, a women's cognitive health researcher with over 20 years studying how the female brain changes after 60. And today I'm going to show you 7 signals your brain may already be sending you, signals that research identifies as early indicators of cognitive change in women over 60. Not the obvious ones, the subtle ones, the ones that are easy to dismiss as stress, aging, or just a bad day. Stay with me through all 7. Because signal number 1, the one we end on, is the one that research now considers the most clinically significant in women. And it's the one almost nobody is talking about. Before we start, a quick question. Have you noticed any changes in how your brain feels over the past year or two? Not dramatic changes. Small ones. Things that are hard to explain but impossible to ignore. Type yes in the comments if something has shifted. Type not sure if you're still figuring it out. Because the women who answer that question honestly, that's exactly who this video is for. Signal number 7. You're sleeping more, but waking up more exhausted. Most women attribute this to age, to stress, to too much on their mind. But here's what the research actually shows. Your brain has a built-in overnight cleaning system, the glymphatic system, that flushes toxic proteins, including amyloid beta, from brain tissue during deep sleep. This process is most active in the deepest sleep stages and depends on continuous, uninterrupted rest to work properly. When the glymphatic system is disrupted, when deep sleep is shortened or fragmented, those proteins accumulate. And accumulation is directly linked to the brain changes associated with Alzheimer's disease. Research published in Science confirmed this clearly. Disrupted sleep doesn't just accompany cognitive decline. It actively accelerates it. Here's what makes this signal specific. It's not just waking up tired. It's waking up tired after what should have been enough sleep. It's the quality of rest that has changed, not just the quantity. Your hours in bed look the same, but you're not waking up the same way you used to. And here's something most women don't know about why this happens specifically after 60. After menopause, melatonin production drops significantly, sometimes by as much as 50% compared to levels at 40. Melatonin doesn't just regulate when you fall asleep. It regulates how deeply you sleep and for how long your brain stays in the stages where the glymphatic system operates. Less melatonin, shallower sleep, less cleaning, more accumulation. Night after night, without any dramatic symptoms, just a woman who wakes up feeling like she never fully rested. This is where most women miss it because they assume the tiredness has another explanation. It might. But it also might be your brain telling you its overnight repair system isn't working the way it should. Pay attention to the quality of your mornings, not just how long you slept. Signal number 6. Words are getting harder to find, but only certain words. This one is tricky because it's so easy to normalize. Normal aging does slow word retrieval somewhat. That is established and not in itself alarming. Processing speed changes with age, and retrieval takes a little longer. That is expected. But research published in Neuropsychology identifies a specific pattern that is distinct from typical aging, increasing difficulty retrieving proper nouns, specifically names of people, places, titles of films or books, combined with the word not coming back the way it used to. Here's why proper nouns go first. Every word in your memory is connected to a network of associations that help retrieve it. The word chair connects to hundreds of memories, contexts, and related concepts. A person's name connects to far fewer. When semantic memory, the memory system that stores factual knowledge, begins to change, the words with the fewest contextual connections lose their retrieval pathways first. Proper nouns. Every time. Here's what that means for you. In normal aging, the word comes back. Later in the conversation. In the shower. When you stop trying. In early cognitive change, it often doesn't come back at all, and you're left genuinely uncertain whether you ever knew it as solidly as you thought you did. The distinction isn't whether you struggle to find the word. Everyone does occasionally. It's whether you find it. If proper noun retrieval has become noticeably harder in the past year or two, and words are staying gone instead of returning, that pattern deserves attention, not dismissal. Signal number 5. You're avoiding situations you used to handle easily. This is the signal most women never connect to brain health. They connect it to personality, to getting older, to simply preferring quiet. But here's what the research shows. Research published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease in 2024 found that neuropsychiatric symptoms, including withdrawal from social situations, reduced initiative, and avoidance of previously comfortable activities, are present in up to 85% of people with mild cognitive impairment, frequently appearing before memory complaints become the primary concern. Before the forgetting becomes obvious, the behavior changes. This is where it gets important for women specifically, because women are more likely to attribute this withdrawal to mood, stress, or introversion, less likely to connect it to their brain, and less likely to bring it up with a doctor. The neurological mechanism behind this is direct. When cognitive processing becomes more effortful, when the brain has to work harder to track a conversation, manage a social situation, or follow the flow of a group discussion, the natural response is to conserve energy, to choose the quieter option, to stay home instead of going out, to let the phone ring instead of answering it. It doesn't feel like a brain signal. It feels like a preference. But it may be your brain's way of managing a processing load that has increased without you fully realizing it. Think about this honestly. Are there situations, conversations, or environments you're navigating differently than you did 2 years ago? Not dramatically, but noticeably. Places where you used to feel comfortable that now feel like more effort than they're worth? That shift, quiet, gradual, easily explained away, may be worth a closer look. This is a good moment to pause. If these first 3 signals are resonating, if you're recognizing something in what I'm describing, I want you to keep watching, because the next 4 are the ones that matter most. And the information in signal number 1 could genuinely change how you think about what your brain needs right now. Subscribe to this channel before you continue. I publish content like this specifically for women over 60 who deserve straight, research-backed answers, and there is a great deal more coming. Signal number 4. Planning has started to feel harder than it used to, not impossible, just harder. This is the signal most commonly dismissed as busyness or stress, and it is the one that research identifies as among the most reliable early indicators of cognitive change in women. Executive function, the brain's capacity for planning, abstract reasoning, managing multiple pieces of information simultaneously, is governed primarily by the prefrontal cortex. Research from Mass General Brigham identifies early executive function changes as particularly significant in how cognitive decline first presents in women, sometimes appearing before memory complaints do. Here's what this looks like in real life. Managing a complex recipe while tracking timing simultaneously. Planning a trip and feeling like the moving parts won't stay organized in your mind. Following a financial document or a long conversation that requires holding several ideas in relation to one another and feeling them slip. Simpler versions of the same tasks feel fine. It's specifically the multi-step, multi-variable thinking that has become effortful in a way that feels qualitatively different from how it felt 2 or 3 years ago. A study published in Neuroscience in 2024 identified early executive function changes as among the most reliable independent predictors of future cognitive decline, not as one symptom among many. On their own, this signal is specific, and it is worth taking seriously. Signal number 3, your sense of direction has become unreliable not in unfamiliar places, in familiar ones. A neighborhood you've driven through hundreds of times suddenly requiring active reconstruction. A building you know well requiring a moment of orientation before you can move confidently through it. A route you've taken automatically for years now needing conscious attention. The Alzheimer's Association identifies spatial disorientation in familiar environments as a core early warning sign of cognitive change, and the neurological reason is specific. The hippocampus, the brain region most critical for spatial navigation and memory formation, is among the first regions to show structural change in Alzheimer's disease. The entorhinal cortex, which feeds information into the hippocampus and supports the brain's internal mapping system, is also affected early. Research published in Alzheimer's and dementia documents that spatial disorientation in familiar environments is one of the earliest behavioral expressions of hippocampal changes, sometimes appearing before verbal memory complaints become prominent. And research from UC Irvine published in Nature Communications in 2025 adds important context. The brain's shape changes with age in systematic ways that appear to specifically increase the vulnerability of the entorhinal cortex to damage. This is not speculation. This is measurable, structural change visible in brain scans. Here's the distinction that matters. One disorienting moment is not a signal. Everyone has them. A pattern, multiple instances across different familiar settings over weeks or months, in places where you previously navigated with complete ease, is the signal. If this has happened more than once and you've been explaining it away, it may be time to stop explaining it away. Signal number 2, something feels off, but you can't quite name it. This is the signal that research has now formalized, and it's more important than most women realize. It's called subjective cognitive decline, and it refers to the experience of noticing a change in your own cognitive function before that change is detectable on any objective test. A study published in Alzheimer's Research and Therapy, following 3,019 older adults with a mean follow-up of 5.7 years, found something striking. Subjective cognitive decline is a significantly stronger predictor of future cognitive impairment in women than in men. Let me say that again. The feeling that something has changed, your own internal sense that your brain is not quite operating the way it used to, is more predictive of future decline in women than in men. Your instinct about your own brain is clinically meaningful data. This matters enormously because it means that the vague, hard-to-describe sense that something is different is not anxiety, not hypochondria, and not you being dramatic. It is your brain communicating a real change through the only channel available to it before that change becomes measurable on a test. And research from Columbia University confirms what happens when women bring this signal to their doctors. Many primary care providers do not explicitly ask older adults about their memory, or they dismiss memory complaints as part of normal aging. Women who notice something is different are frequently told they're fine before they've had the kind of evaluation that would actually determine whether they are. If something has shifted, even something you can't fully articulate, even something that sounds small when you try to describe it out loud, that shift deserves to be documented, reported, and properly evaluated. Not dismissed, not normalized, taken seriously. Signal number 1, you're noticing all of the above, but only in certain contexts. This is the most important signal on this list, and it's the one almost no one talks about. The signals we've covered, word retrieval difficulty, sleep quality changes, social withdrawal, planning difficulties, spatial disorientation, and that internal sense that something is different, are most significant when they appear in combination, and when they appear specifically in contexts that previously felt automatic, not in new or stressful situations, in familiar ones. Research from University of California, Irvine, published in Nature Communications in 2025, analyzed over 2,600 brain scans and found that aging changes the overall shape of the brain in measurable, systematic ways. And those shape changes are closely tied to cognitive function. The entorhinal cortex, the region that feeds information into the hippocampus and supports memory, navigation, and the integration of incoming information, appears to be specifically vulnerable as the brain changes shape with age. Here's what that means practically. The contexts where these signals appear tell you something important. If cognitive difficulties emerge specifically in situations that used to feel effortless, familiar conversations, familiar places, familiar multi-step tasks, that specificity is itself a signal. The brain is working harder where it once worked automatically. And here's the piece of information that carries the most urgency. Research from Michigan Medicine, analyzing over 26,000 people across 5 long-term studies, found that cognitive function in women declines approximately 5 years faster than age alone would suggest, faster than men of the same age, faster than most women or their doctors expect. That means the window for the most effective intervention is earlier than most women realize. Not at the point of diagnosis. Now, while these signals are subtle, while they're still signals rather than symptoms, the women who act inside that window are not the ones who are lucky. They are the ones who are paying attention and who took what they noticed seriously before anyone else did. What to do with this information first? Do not panic. The presence of one or two of these signals does not mean dementia is inevitable. What it means is that your brain is communicating something that deserves attention rather than dismissal. The earlier that attention happens, the more options exist. Second, document what you're noticing. Specific instances. When they happened, what felt different about them compared to how you would have handled the same situation 2 or 3 years ago? A documented pattern is far more useful to a physician than a vague feeling that something has changed. Third, ask for a cognitive evaluation that actually measures the domains on this list: executive function, spatial orientation, verbal memory, processing speed, not a general checkup. A targeted neuropsychological assessment. Given everything we know about how women's verbal memory advantage can mask early decline on standard screening tests, that specificity is not optional. And fourth, something I want to mention because it flows directly from what the research is showing us. The signals on this list reflect changes in how the brain produces and maintains the neurochemical environment that makes effortless thinking possible. Neurotransmitter production, neuroinflammation management, the growth and maintenance of neural connections. These processes don't only respond to medical intervention. They respond to what you give your brain consistently every single day. I've spent time carefully reviewing the published research on plant-based compounds and cognitive resilience in women over 60. And what I keep finding consistently across multiple studies is a set of specific ingredients that show up in the cognitive health literature for real reasons. Lion's mane mushroom, studied for its role in stimulating nerve growth factor, the protein that supports the survival and growth of neurons. Bacopa monnieri, with multiple published human trials documenting improvements in memory recall and cognitive processing speed. Ginkgo biloba, one of the most studied botanicals in cognitive health research, documented for its effects on cerebral circulation and neuroprotection. Spirulina and chlorella, researched for their role in reducing the neuroinflammation that accumulates when the brain's overnight repair is insufficient. I found a plant-based formula that brings these ingredients together in a way that actually reflects the research, not just a label that sounds impressive, but an ingredient profile that I can trace back to published science. It's in the description. I'm not telling you it replaces medical evaluation or resolves every signal on this list. I'm telling you that if you're looking for something proactive to do while that evaluation is being arranged, while the window for early action is still open, this is one of the more evidence-grounded options I've come across. Look at it. Read the ingredients. Make your own decision. A final word your brain has been communicating with you. Maybe for weeks, maybe for months, maybe longer than you've been willing to acknowledge. The signals on this list are not random occurrences. They're specific. They are measurable, and they're your brain's way of telling you that something deserves attention before that something becomes impossible to ignore. Here's what I want you to take from this video. You are not being dramatic. You are not imagining things. And you are not simply getting older in a way that has to be accepted without question. The women who maintain cognitive clarity into their 70s and 80s are not the ones who are lucky. They are the ones who paid attention when the signals were still subtle. Who documented what they noticed, who asked for proper evaluation, and who gave their brain what it needed consistently, proactively, before the window for that kind of action narrowed. That window is open for you right now. Which of these 7 signals resonated most with you? Tell me in the comments. I read every single response, and your answer may be exactly what another woman needs to hear to take her own first step. Share this video with the women in your life who need it. A sister, a friend, a neighbor who has been explaining away something that deserves a second look. This information belongs to all of them. See you in the next video.